Good afternoon. I'm Parisa Norouzi, and this is Taking Action on WPFW 89.3 FM. We come to you every Tuesday at 1 o'clock, bringing the information and inspiration that you need to take action in our city to save our schools and communities, stand up for justice, build our power, and hold government officials accountable. Taking Action is produced by the grassroots organization Empower DC, and we welcome your feedback and your show ideas. You can call Empower DC at 202-234-9119. I'm really thrilled to have this opportunity to spend our hour with somebody that I admire and respect, somebody who has contributed so much to our city, and I'm just thrilled that I get the opportunity to learn more about Rayceen Pendarvis, who is an event host, an interviewer, speaker, community advocate, lifelong Washingtonian, who has done so much in social change and social justice in our city, as well as being a host of the Ask Rayceen show, hosting festivals and fundraisers and events, receiving multiple awards for their work in the community, and earning monikers such as High Priestess of Love, Goddess of DC, Queen of the Shameless Plug, and Empress of Pride. From the March on Washington to Black Lives Matter, Rayceen has helped to create social change, particularly a champion for the Black LGBTQ community. And we are so grateful for Rayceen's ongoing contributions to our city. It really is my honor and privilege to have this opportunity to speak with Rayceen and learn more about the life philosophy that so many of us can learn from. Rayceen Pendarvis, thank you so much for joining me on Taking Action today.
Oh, I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me. My soul is so full today. And of course, it's the queen of shameless plugs. That's Rayceen, Rayceen. Follow me on all forms of social media. You can go to rayceen.com, Rayceen.com, or askrayceen.com.
Thank you for doing that. Yes, and do it again and again, because I want to make sure people don't miss that opportunity to follow you and see all that you're doing. And we're going to talk, about your work in the show that you've been hosting for 10 years. We're going to talk about the movement that you've helped to nurture and grow. We're going to talk about your role, the various roles that you've played, including as an elected official ANC commissioner. But I wonder, Rayceen, if you wouldn't mind, could you share with us a little bit about your history? And my understanding is that you're a native Washingtonian. Is that right?
Born and raised in Washington, D.C., educated in Washington, D.C., lived my whole entire life in Washington, D.C. I was born at Freeman's Hospital. I am a proud Washingtonian, and I'm so grateful and blessed to be here.
So which part of the city did you grow up in?
I am living right now in Ward 5 in my grandmother's home where I was raised. Grew up. I am in the Brentwood area and a proud native of Washingtonian who says, I love Brentwood, I love DC, I love Ward 5. My early years were spent on 13th Street at the corridor of 13th and U. So I was in the midst of all of that wonderful, rich history of Washington and the whole U Street corridor. So my soul is full, so full of joy, proudness, and gratitude to be a wonderful Washingtonian.
That's beautiful that you're, in the home that was your grandmother's home, and have been able to hold on to that and be part of this neighborhood, part of the fabric of this neighborhood. And I definitely want to talk more about Brentwood. But you just mentioned 13th and U, and I'd love for you to set the stage a little bit. What were you doing as a young person at 13th and U? Northwest.
Oh my God, enjoying the beauty, the richness, the culture of the U Street corridor, when at a time, if we were coming out of segregation and coming into the Black movement and the freedom movement, from the riots to joy to triumph, I am so proud to look at my city and know the wonderful richness in the culture that we have in this city, especially so much history in each corridor, in each ward, there is a richness and a culture that must be preserved, must be celebrated, and must be honored. To know where we're going, we must know where we've been. And it's so important that that U Street corridor holds so much history. I can remember as a child walking along, and many of the residents had stores in that area. So if you went into Miss Sally's store, Sally lived in the community. If you went into other stores, everyone was from that community in which you lived. Everyone knew you. I knew Miss Johnson. I knew Miss Johnson's grandchildren. Miss Johnson's grandchildren grew up with me. We had black lawyers, black doctors, black teachers. It was such a wonderful richness and culture right there along that U Street. Oh, it was just, I loved it. You would see musicians, and we had the Bohemian Caverns and so many wonderful jazz clubs, and which I love. And I'm so wonderful, even in the midst of all of that we've gone through, the horror of gentrification. My joy is the blessing to know that you have places like Lee's Floor Shop that's still around on the U Street corridor, Ben's Chili Bowl that is still there, Bohemian Caverns is still standing, which it's gone through several changes, but it is still there. The Industrial Bank of Washington, which is still there. So things from my childhood have remained intact in spite of the changing landscape of Washington, D.C. There are so many things that have still stand the test of time and represent that richness, that diversity, that pride, which makes me say I am proud to be a Washingtonian.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the horrors of gentrification, and so I want to ask you, and this is something that we talk about a lot on this show, as well as the work of Empower DC, is really rooted in stopping the displacement of Black residents from their homes and communities. And to me, that's an issue that underscores everything. Why improve? We're talking about improvements, but we're pushing out the people who've fought for this communities, are of this community. They're the reason why community exists. So can you share with me just what is your perspective on that? Because a lot of people, including elected officials, especially elected officials, talk about the improvements that we're seeing and kind of minimize the destruction that we're also seeing of the Black community and that history that you talked about. How has this impacted you, and what do you think? What is the state of DC then, given all that we've lost to gentrification?
Well, I mean, it's affected me personally. I've watched my community. We are fighting so many things that are coming in Ward 5. We're fighting this bus project that's coming along that is a big concern to many of my residents, especially those in the Brentwood area. We are fighting the overdevelopment of condos, single family member homes being torn down and condos being put in their place. So that, and especially within the cluster of where I live on a one-way street that is right off Rhode Island Avenue, that is right by the Rhode Island Avenue Metro. And I live in I'm on a one-way street. My street adjoining me is a dead-end street. So we are all being affected by the overgrowth of condos, which are slowly coming in and making those lifelong residents, such as myself, feeling like we're being displaced and we're being pushed out. You see the changing of the landscape. And when you overgrow, or the overgrowth of condos, not saying that we're not welcoming our new neighbors and we don't want them to be there. We want them to live and be a part of our community. But what happens is the continuity shifts and changes. You have these beautiful homes that have remained there for 50, 60, 70 years. And then you have these new structures that do not even look like they belong. And it's such a contrast. You go from that to this. And it's such a contrast when you remove homes that have been there, homes that hold the richness, the importance of our community, homes that 5 or 6 generations of family members live. And now you replace them with condos of new people who unfortunately are not from Washington, D.C., and don't have the invested feelings and emotions that come with living and growing and being educated in Washington, D.C. So when you don't have that, you look at just your neighborhood as somewhere to live or convenient to a metro stop. But don't look at the culture and the richness of a community that you live in. Communities like the Shaw area, communities like Adams Morgan, communities like DuPont Circle, communities like Rhode Island Avenue, communities like the Edgewood community, communities like Woodbridge, all of these beautiful, wonderful neighborhoods that I can walk through still as a proud Washingtonian and still know many of the residents there. But when you have the shift that is coming so fast and quickly, many Black and brown people and LGBTQIA and seniors are feeling the shift. They're feeling the dynamics change at such a rapid pace. And it feels as if those who want to build are not properly working with the community. If you want to build, and we welcome growth, growth is not something, it's a part of life. We understand the importance of growth, but work with the community that you want to build. If you come into Brentwood, you want to build condos in Brentwood, work with the impacted residents that are affected by whatever you build. We have to live with it for the rest of our life. So come to us and say, we want to build. We want to work with you. We want to put this into your community, but we want to have a continuity that is equivalent to the homes that are still standing.
It was so well said. The failure to work with the community and the lack of knowledge and understanding of what makes the community rich. It's not the value of the condos that makes the community rich. It's the value of the relationships and the history and the people. And you're right. So many people are coming into the neighborhoods thinking of it as, oh, this is a convenient commute for me, but not thinking of, and really fully unaware and really maybe not even interested sometimes in the real story and history of the communities. And so then we have a real problem, because as you said, I mean, I have not found that Washingtonians are opposed to change or opposed to growth, but it shouldn't be at the expense of the people who've been here, at the expense of that history. Going back into this idea of the importance of knowing our history, I've read some of your articles about you, and this is a theme for you that you really think it's important for us to know our history, and especially the young people in the movement. Can you share? I mean, you have been part of so many, just beautiful aspects of the movement for Black and gay liberation in our city. What are some of the things that you think every Washingtonian, especially Black youth and queer youth, but every Washingtonian should know about that history of the movement for Black queer liberation in our city? What are things that I should know? What are things that other folks should know, just in terms of either key events or key people or key moments in that movement?
There's so many. I think it's so important that young people must know that people took bricks and bottles so they could stand and understand the importance of why we must fight, why we must continue to fight. That many of our Black and brown folks in Washington, D.C., and areas that we celebrate, areas that we love, and areas and communities, but at a time, many of those Black and brown folks who moved into those communities were not welcome 50 years ago. They were not welcome. So when you move into community, when you're not welcome, and then you become a fight to be a part of that community, and then the dynamic shift, the diversity grows, the importance of this richness of when people of color move into a community, they bring their culture. People who are speaking native tongues from where they are from and they move into a community, they bring their culture. So cultures come together and people grow. People know. I live next door to Miss Consuela. Consuela brings this richness of her Latinx experience to the table, and we share the dynamics of what it is to be someone that is of color and someone that speaks a language from her country, and she brings, and we share food, our children grow together, so we understand. And then when Mr. Wong moves down the street, and Joseph Stapperstein moves across the street, we bring the richness of our Jewish community, our Asian community, all living in a community that is so rich in diversity, that we share our experiences and understand we may come from different countries, we may come from different cultures, but we share the human experience of love, joy, peace, and wanting a better life within where we are. And those who move in and hold up their rainbow flags and come into community should feel welcome, and that rainbow should be celebrated as a part of that culture and that community in which they live, that they are proud of who they are, proud out LGBTQIA people, and they are celebrated in a community that embraces them, not tolerate them. And I feel like young people need to know about these importance of the richness and the culture of safe spaces in areas of where you live. For the LGBT community, our safe space and our haven was DuPont Circle. It was a safe space, and for those of my persuasion, of those who are part of my community, felt safe. Folks in the U Street corridor who came and celebrated the Black Broadway rich history, which was there. Folks in my community where I am in the Brentwood community. I loved growing up in Brentwood. That's why I'm here, and I plan to die here. My children are here, my grandchildren, my great nieces, their children, it is such a wonderful generational celebration of who we are, and the people that fight in your community, not just our well-known activists or our well-known politicians, but the grassroots folks on the level who are fighting, such as myself, such as folks like Jackie Manning, Darlene Oliver, Pierre, and so many others, and our ANCs, and why they're important, and why our ANCs, who really do a lot of work on the grassroots level, who take the arrows and the abuse and the bottles, who hear and sometimes hear things that sometimes they may not understand at the particular time or may not agree with, but they are taking an oath to represent their community. So they're fighting for change in the community. And some of our politicians, we have had some wonderful politicians all throughout this country, all throughout this country as a whole, but as the city, who fought for change and made so many things important. I am so grateful for people like Carol Swartz, folks like Marion Barry, folks like Harry Thomas Sr., folks like Robert White, and our newer council. I'm so proud of the DC Council in a celebration of womanhood, that so many women are now on the city council, that at a point there were none. But now there are so many, and women, and the celebration and the power and the dynamics of the strength of women and the movement in this city of how strong Black women, white women, Asian women, Latinx women, trans women, women who embrace and celebrate the solidarity of unity, and the women, the strength, because so many times women who are fighting in the movement, such as yourself, Marissa, women and are part of the Empowerment DC and so many other things in Washington, DC, who don't get the recognition that they do. And women have been on the backbone of the movement for so long, and LGBT folks and women coming through and folks of color have been on the backbone of every movement stood on the shoulders of women and LGBT people. IA, make it very clear. Movements, folks who are feeling displaced or not having their voices heard or feeling as if they are being discriminated against and not fully celebrated have always been the voice of the community. So that's what I want young people to know. I want them to know all of that richness. I want them to know that when young people, who I'm talking about young people under 25 years old, start to get involved in the Black Lives Movement or the voter drives or any type of movement, feeling as if they want to fight for change, understand the importance of the history behind you. Understand folks like Dr. Height, Eleanor Holmes, Norton, folks like these proud, wonderful women who broke doors and broke barriers so these young people can have these movements. And I want young people to know that history. And one day when I close my eyes and I leave and become an ancestor, I want young people to say that Rayceen Pendarvis made a difference, that I came, I cared, I conquered, I fought. And I want them to know that they stand on my shoulders now.
That's beautiful, and I know so many people feel that way about you now. It's, we don't have to only feel that way in the future. You've allowed so many people. You've created a path for so many people, and you continue to do that. I want to ask you
Oh,
to share.
but may I interject?
Please
That's
interject.
because of women like my mother. My
Uh-huh.
mother, who was a social worker for 40 years, who worked for UPO,
Oh my
Mary
God.
Chandler Coles, who worked for United Planet Organization, who took me in the trenches all throughout Washington, D.C., and showed me what it is to be in service. She taught
So
me
glad you brought that up.
she
Yeah.
taught me the importance to be in service. And I lost my mother early this year, but she is now my ancestor. She lives in me and she fuels me and she pushes me. Even when I thought I was supposed to be mourning, I had to stop mourning for a moment and still get back into my activism because I knew the importance of the legacy that she left me. So I have to continue to work and fight. And I will, every time I fight, every breath that I breathe is because of my mother, Mary Chandler Cole, who was and all of the wonderful women and all the amazing people at United Planning Organization. I give them a shout out because that's and still standing today and still doing the work to make changes in people's lives. So I learned at an early age that my mother, which she taught me, and my father, who left us early, was an interesting character, but he taught me never to give up. He taught me to fight and he taught me to believe in things. So he was a character even within himself. So I speak his name, Robert Chandler. So God rest them both.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, UPO, for the listeners who may not know, is DC's official anti-poverty organization. I think it's I know it's over 50 years in operation, and has at its heart that grassroots movement for change, and today offers many different types of programs and opportunities for DC residents. So to hear that your mother was a social worker with UPO for, you said, 40 years.
40 years, almost 40 years, if not.
Amazing. And that she brought, so was she the one that brought you to the March on Washington?
I went with my family. My whole family went. All of us went, which was and one uncles, aunts, cousins, nieces, nephews, neighbors,
Wow.
communities went. People marched. You know, your next door neighbors were there, and their children were there. So it was community that brought me there. You know, and of course I was young, but
Well, absolutely. I was surprised to know that you actually had been there. So, is it, I was going to ask you, when did you find your voice as an advocate? It sounds like this was within you since early days. And like you said, watching your mother, but was there a moment in your growth and development where you started to really realize that this was your calling?
Ooh, I would
Mhm.
say my early days when I began to speak, when I began to understand, when I began to look, and I began to, from my early recollections are 2 years old of my mom walking me through the community, talking to people, being a part of the community. So I learned early on the importance of community. You know, it was, and that's what communities are about, and the richness of the cultures of walking down into communities and knowing your neighbors and knowing the importance of who they are, who's Miss Johnson, who's Miss Jenkins, who's Mr. Wong, who's Lucy, you know, all of those important things of knowing and speaking and seeing and honoring your neighbors. That's what my mother taught me. She taught me if you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for anything. So she taught me she gave me voice, and she instilled in all of my brothers. I had 5 brothers who I love them dearly. We are all ours, Robert, Randall, Ronald, Raymond, Russell. I love my brothers. They are amazing. My mother educated us, raised us, instilled in us the power of faith. She instilled us the power in education. She fought for making sure that we all educated ourselves, even if it was college or beyond college, or, you know, you had to have a high school diploma. That was a must. But it was, she made sure, and none of us have ever been on drugs. None of us have ever been in jail. And I thank God for that, because we had a strong foundation of my mother, my father, my community, our church. All of that was instilled in us.
What church did you go to?
I grew up in United House of Prayer. United House of Prayer.
Absolutely.
I grew up, and my family's still there. We buried our mom there just recently. My brother's a minister there. You know, faith is the foundation on which I stand. And faith is what I am rich in. I am a licensed. I can marry you, you know, right, in DC. So I'm licensed. I've won and been honored by Best of Gay DC twice, clergy. So I am rich in my culture, rich in my faith, rich in my foundation. And I was taught early on that faith is for everyone. And for those who may not be non-believers of God, you embrace them under the umbrella of human kindness, that we all are part of this journey, whether we believe in a higher power or whether or not we don't believe in a higher power, that we are all human and we all have a right at the table, all colors, denominations, whatever your political beliefs are, that regardless, we don't have to always get along, but we can sit and understand that as human beings, we all have a right at the table. So that is so important to me, that I believe that everybody has a right to be.
And what high school did you go to?
McKinley Tech.
Okay, because I know people rep their high school, so I had to ask.
Yeah, I do. I'm a tech trained. I'm a McKinley Tech second in T. I embrace every class that I go to all, I embrace all the classes. So I tell people, they ask what year you graduated, I say all of them, because I embrace everybody, because I embrace all of my brothers went to McKinley. So I knew somebody from the class of 1950 all the way up to the class of 1987. So I embrace all of the classes in McKinley. So I belong to everybody. I'm a proud tech guy.
That's beautiful.
And Teachers College.
Say it again.
And Teachers College.
Teachers College, is that right? Okay.
UDC, I was going, started to go to UDC at a time where, you don't quite understand the importance of, you get caught up, but higher education is so important. But then education in general, knowledge is power. And sometimes people fail to understand that even if you do not have a college education, but if you read and educate and travel and sit down with folks that may not think like you or look like you, but share experiences and see the world and its beauty. That is knowledge that no one ever take away from you. That is knowledge that you have obtained yourself. Knowledge is power.
Agreed. I want to ask you to share a little bit about the origins of Black Pride. Because I understand that in DC, well, of course, DC is Chocolate City, and we've had, I think, a really strong and vibrant Black gay community for decades. But even within Chocolate City, I think in the gay community, there had to be a fight, a struggle for recognition. Can you share?
Well, you always have to fight. We have to
Mhm.
fight to have a voice, to have a place in any world we live in. And in my lifetime, I have been blessed to host and seen the first Capital Pride, Black Pride, Latinx Pride, Youth Pride, Trans Pride, Asian Pride, all of those wonderful Senior Pride, and all of those. I have been a part of all of those, so I am really blessed. But what's so important in living in what we did call Chocolate City, which is now Vanilla Swerve or Mocha Flavor, but we celebrate the importance of having Black Pride. I remember being the host for the very first one, and what it felt like sitting and standing and breathing at 6 o'clock in the morning, taking in the air on Banneker Field across from Howard University, not knowing, not expecting what was getting ready to come. As the sun began to rise along Georgia Avenue, all this, a sea of beauty, of color, from glitter to twirls to rainbows, but a sea of color, black, brown, and all of the shades in between, begin to emerge as if they were coming through the middle passage, coming onto Banneker Field on a day to celebrate what it was like to be Black, gay, lesbian, transgender, and so many others. But the culture and the richness of that Black Pride experience, and why it had to come about, because sometimes, even in movements, sometimes they don't speak to the importance of particular dynamics within that community. The particular dynamics of what it is to be Black and brown, and of all that rich culture that comes with that. Sometimes in certain dynamics or certain communities, they forget. Sometimes they may say that we are all a part of this LGBTQIA experience, but sometimes we have to speak to what it is to be a person of color. Because see, I walk into a room, I bring everything. I don't just bring my gayness. I bring my Blackness. I bring my motherhood, fatherhood, brother, sister, aunt, uncle, neighbor, community activist. I show up in the presence of all of who I am. I'm not just one thing, I am everything. So I bring all of that. So the importance of why Black Pride had to come about, we had to do things in a time that we didn't have organizations that existed, that when we were fighting the pandemic or the epidemic or the crisis of HIV and AIDS that was sweeping through and coming through and taking Black and brown people out at numbers that were so alarming. We were losing thousands, millions of people of color during that time. And we had no one that quite understood, that could speak to the experience of what it is to be a person of color, LGBTQIA, and living with AIDS, or folks who were not living with AIDS. We're fighting for those who were living with AIDS or HIV at that time. So we had to raise money. We had to raise awareness. So it had to be about a party at first, but then it became a gathering of information that was deciphered as money was raised to help and create organizations. That's why you have organizations like Us Helping Us, the Wanda Austin House, Casa Ruby, and so many other organizations that celebrate and help those of color or of the trans experience. And that's why we had to have Black Pride. And that's why we still have to have Black Pride, and the importance of Black Pride. Every pride speaks to the dynamics of the wonderful uniqueness of who we are. We're just not one thing. We are multifaceted people. We have so many things that are part of our culture. As people of color, we bring the African experience, the Latin, the Afro-Cuban, the Latinx. We bring all of that, of all of the beautiful shades of all of this richness of people of color, and our Native American experience. We speak to all of those and we embrace those. So I am, my family is Blackfoot. My mother is Blackfoot Indian. Her family is Black. So I show up in all of that richness. When I come into a room, I bring all of that. I bring all of them. We show up and we are there. And I honor the spirits of my ancestors wherever I am. And I speak to the experience of not just being one thing, but being many, and being proud of all of that. So that's why the importance of Black Pride had to come, because there were voices of Black and brown LGBTQI people, especially in DC, that sometimes didn't feel represented at all tables or not being invited to tables. So we had to create our tables and then invite our others into that table and say, here's our table, and what do you bring? And here, have some of this. Let's sit, let's share, and let's begin to do the work.
Much of that has improved, do you think, that inclusion and representation, when you look at movements now like Black Lives Matter movement, it appears to me that the LGBTQ community is more centered, it's more at the heart, there's more of a visibility. But I wonder what you feel like when you, I mean, we certainly aren't doing enough as a society to uplift and protect Black trans women. That
Never
is
enough. Never
yes.
enough. If you're going to talk about Black Lives Matter, you got to talk about all lives matter. You just can't show up in a room and represent one part of the community and cannot. And like you say, too many lives, Black trans women and trans men, have been killed in this country at alarming rates. And it breaks my heart. But there is a shift. There is a wind blowing. There is a dynamic and changing, and people are showing up and being present and being vocal. That we have all of these women who are out and proud, lesbians in the forefront of the Black Lives Movement. Once again, women are doing it and doing it well. So they're showing up as in women, but in their lesbianism. And they're showing up in their gayness, and they're showing up and all of that, and fighting for change. So all of that is a part. I believe and I see Center for Black Equity, which is now was Black Pride, but Center for Black Equity. And the change, I see young people in Kenya Hutton and and Earl folks doing the work, and people like Derek Strawberry and Janice Chambers and so many, Rail Jones, and so many young people doing the work and fighting in the trenches of the Black Pride movement, which is now Center for Black Equity, doing the work. So, and I was honored when we had the unveiling of the Black Lives Matter Plaza and the march. And when I was there and was asked to come and asked to pray and do a prayer of understanding and a prayer of strength and a prayer of growth and a prayer of inspiration. And as I stood on that stage and looked over the Black Lives Matter Plaza, and to see a sea of all of these Black faces, gay, Black, straight, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, folks from as far as Russia, Germany, Africa, and to look in the community that I'm a part of, to feel that I am being represented as a proud out LGBTQIA rep, standing and a person of faith and praying and looking and seeing folks who are Caucasian, folks who are Asian, folks who are of other nationalities come and be a part of that and hold hands and pray or lock arms, because at the time we couldn't hold hands, but we locked arms in solidarity and prayed and understood the importance of fighting and changing and why voices matter, and understanding the importance of Black voices, but understanding that in order for Black voices to be heard, we all have to stand together and amplify our voices. and understand that Black Lives Matter and all lives matter as well. And we have to understand that we are all part of this struggle to make this world a better place, to make this world a place where everybody feels welcome. But when one life is taken to senseless violence at the hands of maybe sometimes folks are here to protect us, or the hands of folks that hate us, that we have to come together and begin to understand. Don't hate those who kill us. Pray for them, educate them, love on them. So if we continue to love, educate, and pray for them, that a change will occur, that the dynamics will shift. Because if folks say, if I hate you, but you don't hate me, but yet you want to embrace me and educate me and still enlighten me, and still sometimes have to be aggressive in that, because sometimes you're firm, you have to have a stand firm, and you got to have to let them know, I will not let you harm me. But I'm going to tell you, I have a right at this table just as much as you do. So that's important, that we are all doing the work.
Well, I'll be honest. I don't know if I can not hate the person who's killing us. Like, I don't know that I can do that, but I understand the
You
light
have
worker
to
that
find,
you are.
you have to find the empathy.
Yes,
I find it,
I can find that. I can find the
and
empathy.
folks, I've sat at tables folks who have said some things to me that will make your hair curl.
I believe it. I believe you
But
have.
you know what? I say, you don't have to like me. You don't have to love me, but you are going to respect me.
Rayceen, we have a caller on the line, so I do want to welcome this caller. If you could share your name and your comment or question for Rayceen.
This is Rick calling long distance from Germany.
Hi, Rick. How are you?
Hello to you, to the host, and hello to Rayceen.
How are you, my beloved?
I'm struggling to stay alive one more day. But I wanted to ask you again about housing and how you relate to the poor, who you described as feeling displaced. I would suggest to you that many of them, as poor and as families, not just as males, as families, are being displaced, and it's not just a feeling. How do you intend to deal with that in the next 3 to 6 years there in DC?
Me as a whole, or the city?
Well, I think I would have.
Just you as an individual.
Okay, thanks for your call.
First, as talking to them, seeing them, hearing them, understanding that they're human beings, because a lot of times we walk past folks who are homeless and don't see them, and taking the time to see them and say, what do you need? How can I help? I may not be a head of an organization, but I can pray with you. I can help feed you. I can take the time to make sure you're getting into the right program, or take you to, most of the time, I will take you to where you need to go to get the help that you do. So or if I have something, I will give you what I have to give you the help that you need. So taking the time to listen, hear, and connect folks to agencies that can help them. If someone says no in one agency, don't let that be your turnaround. I've sat, and it took me one day to get 4 people into housing. I had to go to 10 agencies from 8 in the morning to 8 at night. And that was not, I wasn't being paid or anything, because I'm a community activist. I don't get paid for the work that I do. I do this because I'm called to do this. I'm doing this because I'm honoring spirit of those who did it before me and with me and that are part of me. So you have to be the change. That's what I'm doing. It is me being the change. So that's how I fight for folks who are homeless, connecting them with agencies that can get them, and not allowing someone to tell me no. If you tell me no, I'm going to find somebody that's going to say yes. So you have to reach out to folks like Catholic Charities or other organizations that even if they apply to folks who, they're organizations for young LGBT homeless, such as the Wanda Austin House, Casa Ruby. There are the wonderful places all throughout the city that have folks in agencies that help homeless. And sometimes it may help them just for a particular amount of time, but then you have to stay in the course and say, if you're in this program for a year, how can I help you get into another program? But I also have to connect you to making sure you're doing the work. What are you doing to help yourself in that situation? Because a lot of times folks get in a place of feeling displaced and they get into a depression. So I have to work with you around your mental health issues, making sure you're doing what you need to do, heal mind, body, and soul, connecting you in a place that makes you feel safe, that makes you feel welcome, that makes you feel invited, that sees you, making sure that you're properly eating and connecting you to those agencies, and not just saying, I'm gonna be in your life for this particular time, that I plan to be there as long as you need me to be there, to making sure you're okay. So that's how I'm doing and how I'm fighting and how I make a difference every day.
That's beautiful, Rayceen. And I heard so much of your mom and the social worker in there as well, with the addition of your own, love, overwhelming love for people. So that is beautiful.
Thank you.
Believe
So,
it or
Rick,
not.
thank you for calling, Rick, and God bless you where you are. And even though you say you're not doing well, I want you in this moment to just breathe. The gift of life is a precious gift. And even though you may feel a little broken at this time, you are not broken. I see you, I feel you. Breathe in that moment. That is spirit breathing in you. And that is the God of your understanding working in you. If you have breath in your body, you have life, you have determination, you are someone. You matter in this world, wherever you are. That if you can stand, then you understand the ability of the gift of life. And then if you are in a place, I want you to reach out to a 1-800 number. And if you don't have money to find a therapist, connect to a therapist. 1-800 numbers are there for a reason. Connect to somebody and making sure your mental well-being is okay. Your spirit well-being is okay if that's what you need. Connect with those places. And if folks can't connect with you, find someone. Ask the question. I may not feel comfortable talking with you about what's going on with me, but can you connect me to someone who is? Or if you have the power to the internet, begin to research and say, I'm going through this. I'm looking for this. I need help in this area. I'm on social media, RAYCEEN.com, AskRayceen.com, Rayceen on all social platforms. Send me a message and I will send it back to you. And I will try to connect you or lift you up. Or if you're feeling down and feeling blue, I will tell you, shake it. Shake it. And even I feel some days that I get tired of doing the work. I feel like I'm not enough. But then I look in the mirror and I see and I understand that I am enough with my grayness, with my gayness, with my blackness. I am enough. And I have a right at the table. I belong there. And no one can take anything from me that which belongs to me. It is mine. And all of us have a right. So I want you to understand that's how you can begin to feel better about yourself. It is in the moments of when depression hits you. Breathe, take it all in. And if you breathe in, you're breathing in the energy of life. And if you exhale, you're exhaling the negative energy, which you're holding in. You got to let it go and shake it. And understand when you are breathing and standing and walking and waving, listen to music that affirms your spirit. Tune into places like WPFW that affirms you on a daily place. They got so many programs that you can't feel depressed. If you're feeling depressed and you listen to WPFW, something's wrong. Because they have something for everybody, the music that will make you feel good. Music is healing. And start reading. Start affirming yourself. I always take the wonderful belief that they say in the help, you is kind, you is smart, you is important. Affirm yourself daily. I affirm myself daily, every day.
That's
Every day.
all such good words to live by. And I could put that on a recording and listen to it. You need to have your own, I know you just wrapped 10 years of doing
The
your
Ask
own
Rayceen show, I sure did. It was wonderful. It was a safe space for everybody. It was an inviting space. But Team Rayceen on YouTube,
Yes,
please
check
go.
it out.
Please check it out. It's free to like and subscribe. That's TEAMRAYCEN, Rayceen, RAYCEEN.com will take you right there. So like it is free. It's free on YouTube. So you can connect with me even if you're feeling bad. Anybody listening. If you feel bad, connect with me. I will connect back with you. But when you reach out, say, I heard you on WPFW. Please say that so I can connect you and making sure that we are uplifting each other and doing the work of making sure that we have safe spaces.
Rayceen, you won't believe it, but we only have 2 minutes left.
I know, can you believe that?
I could talk to you all day, and there was several things I didn't get a chance to ask you about. But in these last couple moments, just what's next? What are you passionate about now? Is there something new you're doing, or is it?
I am.
Tell me.
So proud of Team Rayceen Productions and what we have planned for 2022 and beyond. To our production managers, Czar, to Nikki, to Krilios, to Jason, to Brittany, to Donald, to all of these folks, and to all the volunteers and the folks who came to the Ask Rayceen show. Even though that ended, Team Rayceen Productions is just beginning. I have so many. In fact, when I get off the phone with you, I got about 4 more things to do. But we are constantly moving. And Team Rayceen, Rayceen.com, RAYCEEN.com, or AskRayceen.com. That's why the queen of the shameless plug.
Yes.
And that's why. Reach out, see what we're doing. We're expanding our horizons into film, into television, into more radio, and to a whole lot of stuff. I'm open and growing, and I'm at the place in my life where I'm saying yes and not no.
Rayceen, it has been such a privilege to spend this time with you. I hope that we can connect again very soon, and just thank you for the light that you bring, for the love that you bring, for all of the footwork that you've done, all of the work that you've done, the path that you've laid, and you continue to inspire. And so just thank you on behalf of our listeners and Empower DC.
Thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for WPFW for the work that they do, the entire team. From those in the broadcasting room, those are answering the phones. Please, if you are listening, make sure you are making a donation to WPFW, because when you donate, programs like this exist. So please donate from $1 to $100 or more.
That's
donate.
Right, Rayceen.
Give. Thank you. And God bless you and WPFW.
Thanks again. And I welcome you back anytime. To our listeners, thank you for listening to Taking Action. Stay tuned for Inside Out, but first, the news.